welcome to the first live stream of the week. And you know what that means? It means time to gift some memberships. Here we go, baby. Woohoo! I gift 5 memberships, sometimes more, every week to try and match your wonderful generosity. There we go. Thank you, Danny. Thank you as well. How do you get a gifted membership? People who interact with the channel the most get a membership. YouTube makes the decision. So if you've been a member before, if you leave a lot of comments, if you're a subscriber, that all helps YouTube to decide who would appreciate the free membership the most. And it lasts for 1 month. Thank you to everybody who's a member for supporting this channel, especially during very slow times like right now. Thank you, Nurse Brad. I like your name. And also, thank you everybody who's just tuning in. I know not everybody can be a member, and I appreciate you tuning in nevertheless. Although X-Men Superfan continues to be extremely generous. Okay, so let's get to today's 3 stories of the day. Here we go. Pretty good lineup for a slow time. Oh, by the way, some updates. You might have noticed that I'm wearing my glasses a lot. And that's because I hurt my peepers. Oh, I thought maybe I had an eye infection, but I think it might actually be a chemical burn. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I'm using these Refresh tears. Ooh, Refresh Plus. And I have to give my eyes, they said 1 to 2 weeks of a break from my contact lenses. And I'm like, maybe just a week. So we'll see. Thank you, Martin. But it's been really tough. You know, I got to the point, I've been having a rough time for the past 2 weeks, but it got to the point on Saturday that my left contact just stuck to my eye. And I had a really hard time getting it off. And I kind of scared myself a little bit. But anyway, that's what's going on. And hopefully it's okay. I mean, it should be fine. There's not anything really serious, but I'm just hoping that, like, it's easily fixable. Okay, so yes, so I'll be wearing my glasses for the next couple of days at the very least. So yes, so we're going to talk about these 3 stories, and then of course at the end of the stream, you can ask me anything that you would like. X-Men Superman fan, I don't know if they're inspired by Catwoman. I went to get these glasses at the store, and my friend picked them out for me, and she did a very good job. A lot of people like these glasses, which I appreciate. But yes, these are my glasses. I like them. Okay, so let's get to today's 3 stories. Please keep your questions and comments to the story at hand, or I might not be able to answer them. If you have something that does not fit with what we're discussing, you should ask me that at the end of the stream in the Ask Me Anything section. Okay, so thank you so much for the glasses, love. It makes me feel better, particularly when I can't wear my contacts for a little while. My poor contacts. Okay, story number 1. Boop. Oh no, I covered up poor Ryan Reynolds a little bit. Hold on. Oh, there we go. That's where it's supposed to be. Anyway. All right, so here are my chapter times. We got a lot of stuff to discuss here. These are actually really interesting topics where I have a lot that I want to share with you. Okay. So, Ryan Reynolds put this tease on his social media the other day. It's the Avengers logo with the A written over it, which is from Deadpool and Wolverine. That's the Avengers logo they had there. You know, when they were in the place when you go when you get pruned. So it's funny that you say, "Ooh, Ryan Reynolds, Bomey," because that's kind of like the thesis statement of this section. But yes, so he teased it, and people were like, "What's happening? Is he gonna be?" That's right. That's a good one, Danny. The A for Anarchy. I haven't heard anything about Yelena being in Spider-Man Brand New Day. We're going to talk about, as you can see, Marvel leak madness. Okay, so anyway, Ryan Reynolds teased this. So it was an official tease. It came from Ryan Reynolds himself. But the trades are divided as to whether or not this is actually happening. The Hollywood Reporter and The Wrap say that he is going to be in Avengers Doomsday, and Deadline says, not so fast. They hear that he's not going to be in the movie. So it's unusual, particularly because actually The Wrap is not owned by the same company. The Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, and Variety are all owned by the same company. So it's unusual to see the trades, be divided like that. I actually don't think I can't recall ever seeing that happen. So that's very interesting. That's right, Degaitai, it's Penske Media. Penske Media actually owns almost all the publications. I think they own Gold Derby as well, stuff like that. Full disclosure, Beyond the Trailer was briefly part of their MCN, their distribution service, but I haven't been with that company for quite some time. Okay. Independent, baby. Okay, so Marvel leak madness. Woo! They got a lot of leaks over there. It's nuts. You know, I feel like it's out of control, and it's been out of control for some time. You know, I think you got to be really careful with leaks. I think that, you know, they've always existed. You know, like, for instance, I had a wonderful time watching Avengers Endgame. I'll never forget it. It was an incredible experience. My whole audience, my press screening audience, gasped when 5 years later came up on the screen. People are like, oh my God, they've been blipped for that long? And I also will never forget seeing Infinity War at a press screening. And they had fans there as well. And the reactions to who got blipped. Like when Black Panther got blipped, you could have picked my audience up off the floor. And that was a really cool experience. So apparently there were always these leaks like in the dark corners of the internet, but they weren't as pervasive as they became during the pandemic. When a lot of people started doing their VFX work from home, and there were just a lot of leaks everywhere. And I think that Spider-Man No Way Home really pushed it into a new stratosphere. I mean, it was an exciting time. But Sony played it really well. Sony was, you know, and Andrew Garfield, God bless him, Andrew Garfield insisted, even up to the movie coming out, that he was not in that film. And now, even though there were a lot of leaks, Sony did a really good job of not making anything official. So people were like, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're not going to be in it. And the movie, of course, even though it had a lot of leaks, and I do think it affected the movie-going experience, it went on to do almost $2 billion, and that's without a China release. So very, very successful. I think Thunderbolts was hurt by leaks. But I would say what hurt Thunderbolts the most, in my opinion, was not leaks from scoopers, but the fact that the key scenes went up on social media as soon as the movie hit any market. I thought that was a disaster. And I, to this day, don't understand. That's right, Dallas Andrew. I think lack of action is also a problem. But, you know, there's this new thing where particularly like the Marvel movies will go up on social media in little chunks. And you can see the whole movie for free on TikTok, etc. And I don't understand why these things aren't taken down. I just find it very odd. I mean, just get an intern and say, your job is to take down these clips. It's just really, really amazing. But I do want to point out that Superman still did pretty well domestic. Internationally, not so much. But domestic did extremely well. And that's despite the fact that the entire movie, because they did a test screening. They did a test screening for Superman like about a month in advance, and those people did not adhere to their NDA. And so, you know, if you wanted to, you could pretty much get the entire plot. And, you know, I have to say, there weren't as many, I mean, there are a ton of clips online now. Once that movie hit digital, people are just clipping it like crazy. And again, I'd be like, does this help the movie? Does it hurt the movie? Who knows? But, you know, that doesn't seem to have hurt Superman. So I think like if you have a movie where people actually want to see what happens, you know, and it's really good, then maybe it can survive. But the leaks are pretty nuts. The leaks are, you know, it's a big problem. And I see potentially that happening with Doomsday, you know? So we'll see. All right, now the biggest surprise to me was, did anyone care? That to me was the takeaway from whether or not Ryan Reynolds was going to be in Avengers Doomsday. That no one seemed to care. Never trended. Nobody being like, woohoo, I'm excited about it. You know, like it was just really shocking. I think that if it had been pre-Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, I think people would have maybe reacted a lot differently. You guys want a poll? Let's see here. Do you want Deadpool in Avengers Doomsday. Yes, yes, please. Oh no, yes, it will be great. I'm open to it. And then I need a Deadpool break. And by the way, anyone can vote in a poll. You don't have to be a member to vote in a poll. Anyone has to, you just click on it, cast your vote. But that really surprised me because Deadpool couldn't have been a bigger character. And Ryan Reynolds was at the peak of his career right before this Justin Baldoni drama hit with Blake Lively, and he got pulled into it. Taylor Swift seems to have managed to sidestep it, but she just totally cut off Blake Lively. You know, Ryan Reynolds can't do that. He's married to her. Thanks, Bubbles. So it was pretty shocking to see how much people just, and I think overexposure is also an issue. I agree. Now, of course, Deadpool and Wolverine made over $1 billion, but I think a lot of that was Hugh Jackman, to be honest with you. I think Hugh Jackman really did, but I really liked Deadpool and Wolverine, and I thought Ryan Reynolds did a wonderful job, but I do think he's a little overexposed. I would agree with that. And I do think, to me, what's particular, I had the poster here. There it is. Woohoo! But to me, what's also really surprising is that they're going to have Ryan Reynolds and Robert Downey Jr. in the same movie. And I got to tell you, these guys are not too popular with the general public right now. And I think that's really risky. I don't know how, I just feel like, and I like both these guys, but even my thinking of them doing it like interviews together, you're just like, I don't even know what to say. I don't think Robert Downey Jr. did anything. I think it's just overexposure and people eager for new stories, and coming in and playing another character. You know, like he's Tony Stark. I think if Robert Downey Jr. was coming back as Tony Stark, we'd be having a very different conversation. But let's see. You know, as I said last year, I thought the announcement of Robert Downey Jr. undercut Deadpool and Wolverine when it was just hitting theaters. However, of course, the movie still went on to do extremely well. But so I think they're, you know, if he is in the movie, I haven't heard if he's in the movie or not. I don't know how much it's going to help it, which is interesting to me. I mean, maybe they needed more of a break. I really would like to see a Deadpool like kills the MCU, like that kind of a film, or another Deadpool movie where he teams up with somebody else. But I think you need a little bit more time. And even if he is in the movie, you know, who's to say how long it is? You know, is it just like a fun cameo, or is it like an extended sequence? I haven't heard anything about there being a quarrel on set. You know, I'm shocked that it would reach the general public. You know, have they learned nothing from the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively situation? All they had to do was take a picture together on the red carpet and move on with their lives. And instead, they've torpedoed 2 careers, possibly 3 with Ryan Reynolds. And they've also, you know, potentially killed that franchise, which was just getting started for that movie. It ends with us. Let's see. That's true, Jake. That's an excellent point. It would be Ryan Reynolds' first PG-13, official PG-13 appearance as Deadpool. And that would be very interesting to see how they handle that. Let's see here. Let me go back to some of your questions. Let's do the questions section of this story now. Let's see. John, I have not heard anything about the fight. I haven't even heard that there was a fight on the set of Avengers. Let's see. And if there was, I can guarantee you that both actors would be mortified that it got out into the general public. Because again, you know, you don't know whose side people are going to pick. Jacob says, do you think there'll be a payoff to why is Thor crying? That was the biggest response that I saw. But, you know, I don't know. I think I would have preferred there to be a third movie where he teamed up with Thor. I think Chris Hemsworth and Ryan Reynolds would be a fabulous combination. Hector says Deadpool met Thor and oh, so you mean with the crying. Yeah. Tough Luck says that you would see Doomsday just for Deadpool. Well, that's encouraging. Ryan Reynolds is like, yes, thank you. Although Morphed feel it seems like a move of desperation. I don't know. I mean, we were hoping that the X-Men were going to be in his movie, right? And that ended up not being that way. Let me close the poll. Oh, I didn't even think about throwing Chris Pratt in there. Just do you think Chris Pratt might have gotten by everything? He goes around defending RFK. You're like, dude, I know you're related to him now by marriage, but I would just say you don't want to talk about it. Let's see here. Do you want Deadpool and Avengers Doomsday? So 39% of you are open to it. That's pretty good. 35% of you need a Deadpool break. And only a quarter of you, 25%, think it would be a great idea. Well, then it really seems like they're going to have to pull off the meaning of it all, if indeed that is true. Again, haven't heard anything. Don't know if he's going to be in the movie, but I was really surprised that people just didn't seem to care. Let's see here. Muma, I don't know if Elizabeth Olsen's pulling an Andrew Garfield. If she is, she's going real hardcore on it. Let's see. But I did get the feeling that with the Invisible Woman coming into the way she was introduced, she did seem to me to some degree to be a Wanda replacement. I mean, I think, it's a real head scratcher that Wanda was so successful and so popular, and yet they've not done. That's just so much time has passed at this point. Drago says bringing back RDJ and casting him as a different character just seems lazy and desperate. Well, I mean, let's see. I mean, I think it would be a good idea if it somehow stemmed from. Some people pointed out that his face was badly scarred when he did the snap at the end of Endgame, and maybe that could factor in there. And I thought that was an interesting idea. But I know but I'm not a big Doom fan. This is where, Marvel has always benefited from not dividing its fandom. For a very long time, everybody, Marvel benefited from everyone being on the same page, whereas DC is very divided. But then you start to bring in these characters like Doom, who, I'm not a fan of Doom. So if you want to mess around with Doom and change things up, that's fine with me. But I do know that a lot of Marvel fans would be upset about that. Just like I was fine with taking some liberties with Luke Skywalker, because I'm not a Luke Skywalker fan, but you can see that ended up being absolutely catastrophic for the brand. Jacob says, imagine the payoff of seeing Deadpool interacting with the OG X-Men. Well, that's why we wanted them in his Deadpool and Wolverine movie. It is weird that we're still dealing with that. You thought the door was closed on it in Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't care. I just want to see those X-Men come back. I'm very excited about it. Let's see here. Dancing Dog 60 says, Grace, do you think RDJ will use his accent while he portrays Doom? I mean, I don't know. Would it be insult to injury if he's not Romani and has a Romani accent? And yes, Ben, I think Halle Berry and Famke Janssen have to be there. I think it would be hard to get over if they weren't in the film. Swamp Thing, I would love a Deadpool and She-Hulk conversation, although I think the internet might lose its mind. Poor Tatiana Maslany. She just never got a chance, I think. So let's see what happens. Okay, I think we're ready for the next story. Okay, let's see here. I think people are excited for Doomsday Atmosphere. I mean, I sure hope so. I mean, I was just thinking about this. There isn't going to be a Marvel movie until December of next year. That's over a year without a Marvel movie. I think it's a reset that they need, to be honest with you. I think it's clever. I think it's a good idea. And hopefully at that point, well, Spider-Man. Yeah, there's the Spider-Man movie, but that's July of next year. But that's going to be very much a Spider-Man movie. Although, who knows if this Yelena rumor is true. We'll see. But I mean, she didn't help Thunderbolts, so I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Let's see. Let's see what they decide to do. I hope Vision Quest is cool. I would love for them to be another level of Agatha. That would be really, really exciting. Okay. One sec. Hold on. Okay. All right, so yes, I did see that photo of the two actors that may or may not be playing brothers, and I thought it was a charming photo. Let's see here. Maria says, do you think Gen Alpha is interested in Marvel? I haven't seen... so many Gens. I mean, I don't know. Gen Alpha doesn't seem interested in anything. Okay. Did I miss a super chat? Hold on, I'm going back. I think fans are ready to see other mutants like Storm get spotlighted. Wolverine and Ryan Reynolds got all the attention from Fox. I don't know. I just think it's good they're taking a break. I think it's really important that they're taking a break. Okay, I did close the poll, Alberto. Okay. So let's go to the next story of the day. I like this story a lot. Okay. Story number 2. Did I boop the other one? Okay. Boop. Alrighty. Oh, business story. Business story. Look at all these topics. I love it. Okay. So yes, it happened. The Duffer Brothers have left Netflix for Paramount. They just signed a 4-year deal. It will commence once Stranger Things is done, and the Duffer Brothers can still do Stranger Things content at Netflix, and other things that they might have had in development. But then otherwise, they'll be moving to Paramount. Now, what's interesting to me is that Paramount doesn't have a lot of IP. You know, people were like, maybe the Duffer Brothers will work for Marvel. Maybe the Duffer Brothers will work on DC. Like, where will they go after this? Like, there's nothing. I mean, are they going to do a Transformers movie? That seems like a waste for them. Scream is an interesting idea. And Star Trek, ooh, I kind of like them for Star Trek. That's interesting. So we'll see what, where Paramount uses them. Or perhaps they do original stories. Stranger Things, of course, is an original story that's done quite well. I agree, Oasis. I would have liked to have seen the Duffer Brothers do X-Men. But that's not going to happen. Disney didn't even try to get them. All right, so I think it's also adding insult to injury that the name of their company is Upside Down Pictures. Obviously referencing the Upside Down from Stranger Things. And they're going to be making movies at Paramount. So it's like, ooh, that hurts. That hurts a lot. So that's, I thought was interesting. Now, what's really ironic about this is that Netflix has gotten into a lot of trouble for poaching over the years. In 2 different ways. So, for instance, Netflix poaches a lot of executives. In fact, they've even recently had a couple of people threaten to sue that they poach executives away and get them to break their contracts by offering them quite a bit of money. Thank you, Fuvit. And they also, one of the things they offer is extensive stock options. And that's why when Netflix had that stock dip a few years ago, everyone in Hollywood freaked out because most of their earnings from Netflix are in stock. So if the stock were to somehow go down, it would really wipe out a lot of people who work at the company. But also, not only has Netflix poached executives, but they're getting accused of poaching talent. I think it's not fair. Like, for instance, there was just some kind of speaking engagement, and somebody who works in British television claimed that Netflix poached adolescents. And they said, we cultivated that talent, Stephen Graham and the other co-creator, and we gave them shows over the years and made them very, very successful. And yet, Netflix went and offered them a bunch of money, and they got adolescents, and that's really something we got. And you're like, man, is it really? I don't really think that's fair. Although some of you are pointing out that Ryan Murphy ended up going to Netflix, Shonda Rhimes. Although Shonda Rhimes went to Netflix because she felt that Disney disrespected her. If you haven't heard the story, it's a pretty funny story, so I'll tell it to you. Shonda Rhimes was making so much money for ABC. Tons of money. Couldn't have been making more money. And she called up, yes, that's right, the Disney World ticket story. And she has family members who like to go to Disney World. So they went there and she called up and she said, I'd really like to get some extra tickets so that my family members and friends, family and friends can go visit the park today. And they said, we're sorry, Shonda, but you've hit your limit on free tickets. That's so horrible. So bad. Oh my God. Can you believe that? And she was so insulted that she makes them so much money and they couldn't give her a free ticket. And she had to tell her friends and family that they couldn't go. I mean, I'm sure she just paid for it, although you need a reservation these days. And so she was so insulted, and I think she's right to be insulted, that she left the company. I mean, I thought that was nuts. It was just incredible to me that they would do that. I can't believe it. I can believe it, actually, but it's just really shocking. So, yes, so I really wouldn't say in that case it was poaching. She has the money to buy the tickets, for sure. But I think, there's supposed to be perks. And I think that considering she just makes so much money for them that they couldn't just let them in is I think kind of bizarre. Okay. So that's, but it's very interesting that while Netflix is usually the one, yoink, taking talent and executives, in this case, they got yoinked. So there's just something very interesting about seeing a change in that regard. Then, this is also very interesting in that the Duffer Brothers left the biggest streamer in the world. And, one of the biggest audiences in the world. I think YouTube is first, actually, but then Netflix probably after that. But Netflix does not release movies in theaters. They're starting to experiment with it. I mean, of course, as you know, Rian Johnson and Daniel Craig were very upset with the way the Knives Out sequel was treated. But Greta Gerwig really insisted on it, and she's getting a 2-week theatrical release in IMAX for Narnia. But, and then, of course, there's the whole discussion about K-pop Demon Hunters. That's right, Plum Sparkle, PG Plum Sparkle. Would that have been as big a hit in theaters? That's right, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein will be going to theaters in a limited engagement for a couple of weeks, and then it will go to the streaming service. But these aren't still going to be full theatrical releases. And so the fact that they lost out on this talent, Netflix lost out on the Duffer Brothers because Paramount was able to promise full theatrical releases. The Duffer Brothers are going to be working in every corner of Paramount. Movies, TV, streaming, etc. And it's just, I think it's maybe potentially a wake-up call for how is Netflix going to keep talent. They used to do it by paying them obscene amounts of money, but Paramount isn't above writing a huge check. And let's discuss that. Paramount and money. The Ellison money comes from Oracle, Larry Ellison's tech company, and he apparently has a bottomless pit of money. So not only was he able to fund the purchase of Paramount, but now they just made a $7.7 billion deal for the UFC to keep that at Paramount. They paid $1.5 billion for South Park. That also was a recent deal. And then, of course, there's some comparison to the Disney deals of purchasing Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm, all for about $4 billion apiece, although those were done a couple of years apart. And also I think people saw a lot more value in those deals. You might wonder, what is the value of South Park and UFC? Although potentially maybe all that money comes from keeping people subscribed to Paramount Plus. And then that's right. Then they have the layoffs coming. That's what's particularly not so great about this, and that they're about to lay off a lot of people. They've said they're going to do one quick fell swoop. They're not going to drag it out, but they said the layoffs are going to be deep because they have to free up a lot of money. And that doesn't look so great when you've just paid obscene amounts of money for deals, right? You're like, hey, you know how we were able to pay all that money? With your salary. And they're going to put a lot of people out into the, I don't know how all these people are going to find jobs. And I also want to point out that if you work in the entertainment business, it's hard to get into another business. It's just, where do you go? Like how do those skills apply to any other industry? It's very, very scary. And you're just flooding the market with unemployed people. And there are no jobs for them to go to. It's really very sad and scary. And that's why I want to touch on this. You're seeing studios start to focus on IP and AI versus people. And I think that's very scary. And I think it's true, as people are saying, why on earth did we have all those strikes from the actors and the writers when it seems to have absolutely no protections in place? And you're still seeing extensive AI use. And the only thing that seems to be stopping the studios from using AI is the potential backlash from customers. Like they don't have any moral quandary about it or feel there's any kind of responsibility. They're just like, oh, they won't buy it or click on it if we use AI, and it gets out, darn it. And you're like, how can you do that? I mean, again, I told you I believe in the capitalist system, but I also believe in responsibility. Bill Burr recently had a good statement where he said, why does an executive need to be worth $900 million? They could be worth $500 million and free up still a substantial amount of money for the people who made them all that money. And government is supposed to regulate this, by the way. And government doesn't, neither party is willing to regulate this. Okay, here comes the unicorn. I believe that almost every problem that society has right now is because of the destruction of the middle class. The middle class, if you think about history, the middle class was really only introduced like around the 1940s and 50s. And that's why people look at that as a prosperous time, at least economically. Let's not even talk about the horrors of the way people were treated, but the middle class is just crucial. And it's a relatively new invention, but it's crucial to, I think, a successful society. And they've just allowed all the politicians in both parties the absolute destruction of the middle class. And I see some people moving towards socialism as an answer, but that's not an answer. The middle class is the answer. Upward mobility. Thank you, Isaac. The middle class is crucial. And if you want to think about why people felt that the 50s and the 60s were prosperous, it was because of the middle class. And it's very important to get that back. And I don't see how that's going to happen. I think AI is destroying it. And it's interesting to me. I was talking about this to someone the other day, and they pointed out that in the past, the 1% has needed people to do what to run their companies. But AI has created a situation where people simply aren't needed, period. And that's absolutely terrifying. And I don't think that a universal income is going to solve it, because I think that makes people listless. It's just the middle class is crucial. And I don't understand, it's like if you don't know history, it's doomed to repeat itself. And I was recently referencing in my discussions, we'll get back to movie news in a moment. I was recently referencing in some of my personal discussions with people, look at ancient Rome, and like people were so upset. They were like, yeah, they were in the Colosseum and they were like, yeah, kill that dude. And you're like, this is horrible. And think about the French Revolution, where people were so upset the way that they took out the upper class and the royalties, and in both those cases, you had a general public that was pushed down and was so unhappy that they became violent. And the only thing that stopped those things, they're like, well, we're all okay today. Well, think about it. You had to have the French Revolution, which was really, really bad. And then also Rome was burned to the ground, which was also really bad. So, but that's where my friend who I was discussing this pointed out that after those horrible moments in history, things needed to be rebuilt. But now AI can rebuild those things. Hey, Elpidio. So I'm very, very nervous about it. I'm really, really scared. And I think you're right, Plum Sparkle. The first Joker movie did address these things, which is why I think it struck such a chord. But I'm very, very nervous with the way things are getting. And I think you're seeing the absolute destruction of the middle class in every possible regard, even in Hollywood. And I'm not quite sure where everybody thinks we're headed. Thanks, guys. So, yeah, so I'm really nervous about it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so it's really bad. Okay, any questions about this? Sorry, I went off target there, but I'm really worried about all the people who are getting fired. I don't know where they're going to find a job, and that to me is very concerning. Yeah, Elise, the money, I don't know why the money is allowed to keep going to the top 1%. You know, it used to be that wasn't allowed. And also, people don't know their history anymore, which is also problematic. I respectfully disagree, Econostone, because socialism doesn't allow people to climb the ladder and to be able to feel that they can better their lives. You know, I have serious issues with socialism, as we know from my Toy Story 4 review. You guys got so upset with me for that. Pretty funny. I think that it's important for people to feel that they have agency. Because, you know, Plum Sparkle says, why does there need to be a ladder? I think people need to feel they have agency. I think that's really important to society. I mean, I know you can disagree with me, but I don't think we see any socialist country that's doing well. So I think that's a real big red flag. There's not like one socialist country that's happy. Oh, Sophia has a good point. Back to our story. If the rumors are true that Paramount might buy Warner Brothers, would the Duffer Brothers be able to work with that IP? They would. That's pretty good. If Paramount improves its stable of creatives, perhaps we wouldn't be so upset if they bought Warner Brothers. How much money do they have over there? That's incredible. Speaking of money. Although I've never heard anybody at Oracle complain, so I guess Larry Ellison pays his employees well. Let's see here. I would also point out that for all of its flaws, America is still the country of invention. I see most things still invented here in the United States, which is interesting. And I would also say that the United States is the only country where you're not stuck in the class that you were born in, which I believe is still an issue in most countries to this day. Although I'm sure somebody who lives in another country right now will be like, not true. But we'll see. I don't know. You guys are promoting China, but I'm pretty sure people flee China because if they don't agree with China, they'll kill you. And I would, this is getting very political. Whew, it's a whole herd of unicorns. We're in unicorn country. And I do agree of the importance of immigration. I think that immigrants have built the United States, and the United States has always been a beacon of hope to people, which is important. Okay. Let's just say I don't think there's any place that's a utopia. For sure. Okay. Whew, that got very political very quickly. Whew, middle class, very important. Okay. Alrighty. Story number 3. Oh, guess. Let's go to the Archie comics. Okay. Boom, baby. I love Archie comics. I read Archie. I gotta tell you, I saw some people who also like Archie comics, and you guys said you were excited about this story. I read Archie comics every single day. I'm a Comixology member on Amazon. I subscribe to Comixology, and Archie comics are free with your paid subscription. So I only have to pay like less than $6 a month, and I can read all the Archie comics that I want. And they're wonderful. I just bought an Archie comics t-shirt for Christmas. I'm such a big fan of Archie comics. I think they're really cozy. And provide a really nice escape. Although now I'm covering Archie, but usually I cover Archie. I like to read Archie comics because they're very cozy and because they have absolutely nothing to do with my work, so I can just turn my brain off and enjoy them. And what do you know? They're back. So let's talk about this story. So they're doing an all-new movie, which isn't connected to anything that you've seen before, although we're going to go through the other Archie properties. But Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who do the Spider-Verse movies and do the Lego movies, they are going to produce this. And when I first saw this headline this morning, I was very, very excited about this. I thought, wow, what luck to get those two on Archie. I think they are a wonderful choice. But then, like many of you, I was pretty darn shocked when I kept reading and discovered that Tom King would be writing the screenplay. Because first of all, Tom King isn't funny. He's not a good comedian. And so the whole point of Phil Lord and Chris Miller is that they're very funny. So I was like, what an odd choice to pair with those two. Because Tom King, again, is not comedic whatsoever. He also wrote an Archie comic. It's called The Decision, where it was billed as Archie finally makes a decision between Betty and Veronica. Who's Tom King? Tom King is a very successful comic book writer who works for DC. He also is a big part of James Gunn's DC Studios because James Gunn is clearly a fan of Tom King's work. Who did he choose? Nobody. It's such a stupid comic. I bought this comic. I forgot about this comic. But because I have Comixology, I can bring up a comic book very easily. Went back and checked it out. Archie decided to flip a coin. And then the coin obviously rolls away. Everybody's chasing it. And then when they get the coin, he says, I forgot to call who was heads and who was tails. Let me just tell you, the idea of flipping a coin to decide if who you're gonna date is like pretty frickin' offensive. His Wonder Woman run isn't bad though. I have to say Tom King has very good ideas, but he also can be really maddeningly upsetting. So he's a real mixed bag. I think he's a great idea man, but I wouldn't fully trust him with anything. That's my opinion on Tom King as a comic book fan. But he has worked with Archie comics before. All right, so they're saying that Tom King came up with an idea that he did destroy Catwoman. Although the new Catwoman comic's pretty good. So anyway, by the way, Absolute Batman. How much are they going to torture poor Bruce Wayne in that series? It's like frickin' Saw at this point. I was like, if you read the new issue that just came out yesterday, no spoilers. But I was like, what is the point of this? I don't see how you can walk this back and how Batman isn't forever changed. Right? Sophia knows what I'm talking about. Like, I read that. Couldn't wait to read it last night. Clayman did the artwork. Oh, by the way, hot Joker? What's happening? But he was very hot. Clayman draws everybody to be hot. It's incredible. But yeah, I was like, what the heck is happening in this title? I don't know where they're going with it. I mean, I can't get enough of it, to be honest with you. But it's really crazy. I mean, they're really benefiting from it being an Elseworld story. I mean, what they did with Mr. Freeze was weird enough. But now I'm just like, what is this? Okay. Go read it. If you want to see hot Joker, he's in the latest issue. It just came out yesterday. It's Absolute Batman. I forget what number it is, but Bane is on the front of it. And Clayman just joined in to do the artwork for this issue. And it's crazy. Okay. But yes, so they said Tom King came up with an event-level movie idea. That as soon as he pitched his Archie take, they were like, we got to do it as a movie. It's definitely a movie. And they said it's going to bring in lifelong fans and new fans. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. So let's talk about it. So I think one big problem that Archie Comics has is it's not a very diverse group of characters. Over the years, they've tried to fix that. And I do like a lot of the characters that they've added. This is kind of the current lineup they have for Archie. And also in Riverdale, they kind of changed up Veronica, so that works. And they added in some other elements as well. Reggie, very nice. I liked what they did with Reggie quite a bit. But anyway, and of course, Kevin Keller was a great addition adding a gay character to the series. But I think one of the biggest problems with the diverse characters that they've added to Archie comics is that they never tell any stories from these characters' perspective. They're still always telling the same old character stories from Betty, Veronica, and Archie, and sometimes Jughead, and then all these other characters are just always in the background. And I think that if they really want these characters, it's the same with like Chuck and Nancy from back in the day. Like, Chuck and Nancy never really got any of their own stories. I mean, there are a couple of them, but not very many. And so I think like it would have worked a lot better if they had actually done a better job with these characters. So yeah. But, you know, I'm a very big fan. Chuck and Nancy are, you know, they were the first efforts at diversifying this comic. You know, it was Chuck Clayton, the son of one of the PE teachers, and then his girlfriend Nancy. But I don't know if you could race bend the Archie lead characters. I don't know if that would work particularly well. So I think, you know, I'd be curious to see how they're going to make this work. Now, what's interesting to me is that Barbie managed to handle this quite well. I honestly feel that they feel that this is their Barbie. And I have to say, it's not a bad approximation. I feel like this could be a Barbie for them. And Barbie, I think, handled diversity very well. And I think when you look at this lineup of characters right here, this feels a little bit like the Barbie movie. So maybe it could work, right? I think that maybe it could work if they can get that element together. But that's true. It does feel like maybe a mini Barbie. I hope they don't spend too much money on it. But, you know, I have to say, I see the vision to a degree. That's interesting, Britt, that you say Barbie is multicultural, but Archie is mostly American. Well, we're going to talk about that. They've recently expanded into India very successfully. Oh, I don't know if they were successful, but obviously there must have been an audience for it or they wouldn't have done it. But yeah. Well, you know, it might be white guys doing this, but Greta Gerwig is white, and she did Barbie, and I thought that and with her husband, Noah Baumbach, and I thought that they were very inclusive. So I think it can be done with good content creators. And don't forget that Phil Lord and Chris Miller produced the Spider-Verse movies with Miles Morales, and they did a wonderful job there with representation. So I think that it can be done. I wouldn't write them off just, you know, at first glance. So I think there's Barbie. I think, let's see here. I think there's Minecraft, to agree. And then also they're bringing back this Masters of the Universe, which, by the way, has one of the stars of Riverdale in that movie, playing Tila. But I do think that Barbie is the closest approximation. All right. Okay, so let's talk about Archie comics. Archie comics to this day are really great. They're so good and they really hold up. You can read Archie comics from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even the 80s. And they're really, really good. Oh, let's do a poll. Who reads Archie comics? Are you familiar with Archie comics? Heard of them? Oh, read a few. Still read them today. Then we'll do more Riverdale, etc. And then we'll do not at all. And by the way, anyone can vote in this poll. You don't have to be a member to vote in the poll. So Archie comics, I think, really hold up. I think, though, that today they're pretty bad. They do have the Kennedy brothers are, I don't think, any relation to the political family, but they are these two brothers who do a wonderful job with the artwork. But for the most part, poor Dan Parent has been holding up this entire franchise for the last couple of years. He does a pretty good job modernizing the look of Betty and Veronica in particular. Their outfits are always very good. I'm like, Dan Parent really does his research. However, I feel that, you know, they come across as very cheap, you know, very quickly made. The quality of the current Archie comics is, I think, the worst they've ever been. So I think that's maybe one of the reasons that they maybe don't have a lot of fans these days, because they're just so poorly done. I was in New Jersey recently. I went to Barnes & Noble and I picked up some Archie comics that I could hold in my hand, because that's always fun, the digests. Although I had tried to buy them, I was at the Wegmans in New Jersey, and I wanted to buy some Archie comics that they had at the checkout, because when I was little, I used to buy Archie comics when I was at the supermarket. That's one of the ways that I got into Archie comics. But they were all dirty, so I couldn't buy them there. It was like when that person stepped on that comic at the comic book store. I don't want a dirty comic, in terms of, being actually dirty. But it was pretty frustrating. But yeah, I mean, Archie Comics is a gateway comic. A lot of people who read Marvel and DC, a lot of people got into it from Archie. I mean, comic book stores have gone away, sadly, so there aren't a lot of people doing it that way. But back in the day, people used to get in through Disney. Like, I got into comics by reading Archie and by reading Uncle Scrooge. And then eventually, I told you my epiphany. One day I was at a comic book store, actually in New Jersey, which is out of business at this point. But I was in a comic book store in New Jersey, and I was looking at the Archie comics on the shelf. And I literally said to myself, he's never going to choose. I said, he's never going to choose between Betty and Veronica. And I was like, let's go see what's going on in the rest of the comic book store. And I walked over to the DC section, and I never looked back. Although I did look back, because I still read Archie comics to this day. Archie comics are cozy. I think that's what's nice about them. And I think that they were very well written for a while there. Now let's talk about Archie comics and other media. Okay. Let me walk you through Archie comics and other media. Oh, I love it. As you can see, I really know this stuff. All right. Some of you might not like them. I can see someone saying cozy or dated. I think they're cozy, I mean, obviously, sometimes they'll do things that, as a feminist, I'm like, that's pretty bad. Like, I think one of the best things they did, there's a woman, Kathleen, what was her name? I'm forgetting it off the top of my head. But she wrote a lot of Archie comics back in the day. Let me look her up. Hold on, I want to get it right. Kathleen Webb. That's right, I was right. Kathleen Webb. And she did quite a bit to, I think, flesh out the female characters and write things more from their perspective. She used to also write some really great comics about Betty and her sister Polly that were really incredible. And then also she gave Betty another romantic interest named Adam, so that Betty was no longer just so desperately going after Archie, and that she kind of had somebody else that liked her as well. And I thought that was really a nice thing to do for Betty. So I know my Archie comics extremely well, as you can see. Okay, so Riverdale, I think, is perhaps the best known to people today. That's the Greg Berlanti series. Here they solve the problem by putting Betty with Jughead, which I think is a fabulous idea. I actually think they're a great couple. I like them quite a bit together. I've always liked Jughead. There's just something about him, I agree. I remember they flirted with Jughead having a love interest in the comics, and that's to this day. I read it when I was very little, but I still, what was it, Josie or something? I still remember it to this day when he had his first kiss. That's ingrained in my brain. It was so great. It was so dramatic. I loved it. I think I recently re-looked it up. It was just amazing. So anyway, so they have Riverdale, which was popular for a while, but then kind of fell out of favor. But they took it in a very different direction, very noir. Then, of course, they recently did a pretty good remake. Mark Waid came in, who obviously is a very successful comic book writer for Marvel and DC. And he reimagined them with Fiona Staples, the artist on Saga. And this was incredible. This run was actually really interesting, and they really updated Betty and Veronica and did a great job with it. But they really lost their footing, particularly when they lost Fiona Staples, whose artwork I think was really a crucial element here. But this was really good for about 10 issues, and then it just became bad. Then, of course, this is the recent India version of the Archies, which came out just, I think, like in the last year. I'm not quite sure how well it did, but this was a movie that was made for Netflix. And then, of course, I don't know if anybody's familiar with this. This was a show that came out, or a special that came out in 1990. And this was called Archie to Riverdale and Back Again. And this was Archie coming back to Riverdale, and it was showing what happened to the characters when they grew up. As you can see, it's pretty well cast. I think that's Lauren Holly as Betty. And it's pretty funny. Also, this actor who played Archie also did something when they did a Prince Charming series, where they had like Prince Charming living in Superbia. And I believe he played Prince Charming there as well. So these were clever ideas. And this was something that I think is remembered pretty fondly by Archie fans. And then kind of jumping off of this, recently, well, not that recently, maybe in the last 5 years, they did a Archie adult series where they showed two paths for Archie, if he had married Betty and if he had married Veronica. I don't know why the artwork seems switched on the two of them with the title. I must have grabbed the wrong thing. But anyway, you can see it would show how different his life was under both circumstances. And whenever you bought this giant-sized magazine, it would have both of them, you know, and you would read both stories. And it was pretty good, I thought. Again, it kind of ran out of steam, but it was a pretty good title for a while. And, you know, I just wanted to show this to you, to show you how they've played with the Archie story over the years. And they're not saying what the twist is on this movie. So I'm very curious to see what they decide to do. Like, what is the story? That's right, there's Sabrina and Josie and the Pussycats. Those are all other elements, but that's not Archie comics per se. You know, they're from the same publisher, and sometimes they do crossovers, but, you know, they're probably going to just focus on Archie, I would imagine. But we'll see what the twist is that they came up with. What makes an Archie comic story worthy of the big screen? I am curious. All right, let me close the poll. I'm pretty shocked by these results. So look at this. All right, so 46% of you aren't at all familiar with Archie comics. Hoo boy! Universal, I hope they didn't pay too much for this. 26% of you have read a few Archie comics over the years. 23% of you are most familiar with Riverdale and other things like that. And only 3% of you still read Archie comics to this day. I think it is a little bit dated for a lot of people who didn't grow up on it. And I do think that the new comics aren't very good, which probably also contributes to people not really reading them anymore. But, you know, how many people were still playing with Barbie and yet still went to see the movie? But that was such a clever approach that Greta Gerwig had. I don't know if you can come up with the same thing without seeming like you're ripping off Barbie. I think Sabrina is more famous than Archie because of the show that was on Netflix, which was a great show, for sure. That's right, I'm in the 3%. I still read it. It's great. I totally understand it's not for everybody, and I personally, to tell you the truth, would not greenlight an Archie movie, although I haven't heard the pitch. It would be hard for me not to greenlight it with these guys producing now. I have a lot of faith in Chris Lord and Phil Lord and Chris Miller. So, any questions about this? No, Stephen, I don't think that's the same love triangle. It's not really a love triangle. I mean, I think that one thing that Archie should really focus more on, okay, is that, you know, Archie's more about when you're a teenager, do you really want to go steady with just one person? You know, why should he be asked to? You know, like why you would think you would, I mean, Betty and Veronica date other people, you know? Oliver says, animated in a Spider-Verse style. They didn't say anything about an animated, I think it's live action. And I agree, Keneal, the casting on Barbie was incredible. And I think that would be difficult to do if they kept them as teenagers. So is the twist that they're grown up? And then that might be interesting. Skylar Gazondo would be an interesting Archie, but he's already in Meet the Parents, basically probably playing Archie. Like basically an Archie version of that. Mason Thames can't be everybody, or can he? Brett, I was never, Josie and the Pussycats are an interesting comic. They were actually created by Dan DiCarlo, and he modeled Josie after his wife, who actually wore her hair in a similar style. I think they're okay. I've never been a big Josie and the Pussycats fan, but I always have enjoyed their comics sometimes when they're in the middle of a digest. You know, they gotta pad those digests somehow. Let's see. Pedro Pascal is Archie. That's funny. Maybe as Mr. Lodge. I agree, Atmosphere. I love Lord and Miller so much. I've never seen Lord and Miller do a bad job. They reinvented 21 Jump Street. They reinvented Lego. They reinvented Spider-Verse. And I thought their take on Solo wasn't that bad. Oh, DeAndrew has an interesting point that says, you know, perhaps because Superman didn't do well because of the Americanism, maybe Archie wouldn't either. Let's see. Mr. Lodge isn't bad. They only made Mr. Lodge evil on Riverdale. Mr. Lodge is not an evil person. He's actually supposed to be a really wonderful guy. I've always been a big Mr. Lodge fan because I read the original comics. That's right, Wanda's attorney. He's just rich, although these days, of course, that makes him, you know, I hope he gives generously to the Riverdale community. Oh, that's okay, Madav. They made him evil. And I actually thought that the casting on Riverdale was pretty good. That's right, Atmosphere. Lord and Miller were fired on Solo. I think they had good ideas, and I think they were right to cast Alden Ehrenreich. Oh, we're already at an hour. Let's do the Q&A. All right. I appreciate everybody, even though you don't read Archie comics, listening to the Archie comics story. So thank you very much. So let's do 10-minute Q&A, and then I must go. Oh, I heart movies. You're so sweet. I've been a fan of yours for 5 years since I discovered your review for Coraline, and I've never looked back. Happy anniversary to us! You're such a sweetheart, and I loved having you on one of the chats that we had recently. You're a great member of the community. Natcha says, hi, Grace. Zoe Kravitz's publicist confirmed she's not in the Batman Part 2. There is a rumor that Harley is the next female lead. I haven't heard anything about that at all. And again, I don't want to mess it up, you know. I think we want to be careful not to spoil these movies. I don't know how that would work. If you would, I don't. Let's see. I feel bad that Zoe Kravitz would be sidelined. I thought she did a really good job as Catwoman. Hopefully she gets a series. NGN8 says, hey, Grace, how much do you think international box office should shape Hollywood's creative choices? It should be very important. That's where they make a substantial amount of their money. Danny, I'm glad you're close to getting your next badge. That's very exciting. The Order of Dylan. What a great name. Says, Grace, what are your box office expectations for The Mandalorian and Grogu? Well, I gotta see it. Like, does Grogu speak and, like, fight people? Then I think $1 billion. If it's a little bit more, like, with cameos like Jack Black and Lizzo, like the last season, then I see maybe that might hurt it a little bit. I have to see what it looks like in terms of how much action there is. Does it seem like a movie instead of a streaming show? These are all really important elements. Oh, It's Not Diego says, why is Solo a good movie, Grace? I think so. You know why I think Solo is a good movie? Because at the end of the film, I really felt that he was Han Solo. Like, if you sat through it and you forced yourself to watch it, at the end I was like, oh yeah, there he is. And I think that was a mistake not to have him start as being Han Solo. I think because, you know, somebody told me once, and I think it was very good advice, that, you know, don't save your best stuff for last because, you know, I think people feel, oh, well, I'm going to have a strong ending. But you're assuming that people will get to the ending. And I think this is a good example of that. I didn't see the new Kiss of the Spider-Woman trailer yet, Plum Sparkle. M57 says, Grace, what do you think about Vanity Fair getting rid of esteemed film critics? Was that Vanity Fair? I saw that the Chicago Tribune got rid of their film critic, but I didn't know that Vanity Fair had as well. Is it a dying profession? That's an interesting segue. Okay, so let me tell you my thoughts on that. I don't think it's so much that film criticism is dying. I think that the newspaper publication business is dying. I think that it's not so much that they're getting rid of having movie reviews. I think they don't want to pay people a lot of money and have actually employees. I think you're going to see almost all publication jobs move to freelancing. They don't want to have to pay you like an adult salary. They don't want to have to give you benefits. And again, this is where government is supposed to step in, right? And I think there's a show coming up, the spin-off of The Office, the paper. And I got screeners for that, and I got to watch the first 9 out of 10 episodes. I can't review it. I think I'm under embargo, so I can't say anything, but I'll tell you that I watched those episodes in 24 hours. And it's about the newspaper business. And I think you'll see I think that'll help you understand what's happening with film critics being on staff. Oh, Salsa, I'm so glad you're in a Q&A. Welcome to the Q&A. Clapback Cinemas. I hope you're doing great. Grace, did you see the Good Boy trailer? Oh, no, I haven't. I remember Good Boys. I haven't even heard of the Good Boy trailer. X-Men Superman fans, is your opinions on Lego Batman evolved or changed? I'll tell you, when they had that Lego Batman game trailer yesterday, my gut reaction was, no Will Arnett, I'm out. I think to me, Will Arnett is Lego Batman. I haven't heard anything about a fight on the set of Avengers Doomsday, just to let you know. I see somebody else asking about that. I haven't heard anything about Yelena in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Haven't heard about it. Let's see if a trade steps in. Let's see here. Anton says, hey Grace, thanks for your enthusiasm in Alien Earth. My expectations were mid, but I'm excited, but nervous about the new lore they're introducing. Well, they gave me the final 2 episodes. I definitely think you should be on this ride. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening, and I'm having a great time breaking it down with you guys every week. Riley says, hey Grace, you heard a rumor that Pattinson will in fact be DC's Batman. Announcement this Friday. Wow, I haven't heard anything about it, but I better make a note just in case. Okay, let's see. That would be nuts. Why on this Friday? Where did you even hear that? I have not heard anything about that. But it would make me extremely happy. Faye says, Grace, I finally saw Weapons yesterday for my birthday. Oh, happy birthday. It was excellent, and I think Amy Madigan should get a second win to her career. I would agree. What do you think about her as a comics-accurate Madam Web? I think it's going to be a long time before they revisit Madam Web, but she's not a bad choice, actually. Helen Mirren can't play everything. Or can she? Oliver says, one thing Riverdale did right is that every character was LGBT in one way or another. Kevin even kissed Archie. Well, I wasn't watching the show when it got to that point, but that's very interesting to hear, and I'm glad to see that there was that kind of representation there. And I do think, Kevin Keller was a wonderful addition to the Archie brand. Let's see here. Kings says, seems that Netflix is doubling on Wednesday and One Piece, renewing both shows for season 3. On One Piece, season 2 hasn't even aired yet. I don't know if I'm going to cover One Piece. I just don't know if it's for me. But let's see. Theater Kid says, do you think Mortal Kombat 2 will be successful? I do think it will be successful. I think it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be super successful, but I think that it's definitely going to be, I think that it, at the very least, will be a solid success for Warner Brothers. I think Warner Brothers will feel good about the movie. Oh, thanks, Clapback Cinema, for explaining the Good Boy trailer. I'll have to take a look at that. I did see that. I tweeted about it, that Interview with the Vampire Season 2 is going to Netflix. So that's amazing. That's really fantastic, because I think that's going to be crucial for people watching Lestat. I mean, I think people, I don't know. I wish that it was a Netflix show, but it's not. Elise, I'm very much looking to forward to Fallout Season 2. That trailer yesterday, it couldn't trend, but I think it got some attention, and it certainly looked very good. I got to refresh the lore. It's been a minute since Fallout, so I have to remind myself about all the Fallout lore. I don't know if I'm going to see the Demon Slayer film. I have seen that it's getting a lot of attention, for sure. Oh, thanks, Oyster Bay. I'm glad you're enjoying my Alien Earth breakdowns. Dove Harlequin, I'm trying to be really careful about spoilers, you know? All right, one more minute. Oh, wait, so you just made pizza. That's fantastic. I'm not sure what my dinner plans are. Oh, Stephen Turner says Scooby-Doo could be the next big thing for Netflix. It most definitely could, but it's interesting you bring that up because if it was very successful, I think it would undercut Archie. And Nico says, love from Argentina. Love to you too. Mr. Magic, I'm glad you could make the stream so I could say hi to you. I'm almost done though. You guys, I'm sorry you're joining the stream at the last minute, but at least I get to see you. John Thrasher, I didn't see your... why no hype leading into Doomsday? With no hype leading into Doomsday and poor Marvel box office, do you think it hits a Billy? Thanks for using the term Billy. I think it could. I mean, I think it has a lot of the components that it needs. I just hope it's a really great story with lots of stuff for us to discuss. And I hope it has enough action. But the Russo brothers... they really know how to have enough action. That's one of their strong suits. I think that the Russo brothers really know how to deliver that kind of movie. All right, so that's been 10 minutes Q&A. I had a wonderful time with you as always, and I should be doing a live stream tomorrow as well. So I'll see you then. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.